What's going on, everybody?
What's going on?
We are back again for our Thrive City podcast.
Yeah.
For another episode. Hopefully y'all ready to go. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Ain't no telling what he gonna say in this podcast this time.
There's always no telling.
Yeah, it's exciting. Nail biter.
Yeah, you gotta introduce yourself though.
Yeah. So I'm Saryta.
And my name's Greg. And we're the Colberts.
We're the Colberts.
So corny.
So we are the Colberts, and we are planting a church called Thrive City Church.
Thrive City.
In the West Valley of Phoenix. Definitely excited and terrified all at the same time when it comes to planting a church. And, you know, that was something I was thinking about. Like, this is definitely an exciting and a terrifying time, right?
Yeah.
What is something else exciting and terrifying that you've done that could even remotely compare to planting a church?
Well, actually, it's so funny that you say that because really this podcast episode is about one of the last things that we did that was terrifying and beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was moving to Arizona.
Man, was it?
Yeah, like I can't wait to get to the story because it's it's like a good movie where it's like you got suspense, there's the unknown, there's a little drama in it. It's like, there's so many elements to it. So like, yeah, that was a terrifying time, but we're going to talk about that. So I'll give you another time.
Okay.
When I had to ask a girl out to the prom.
Ooh. Did you have to do, like, nowadays they do the whole, like, signs where they put them up and they do all these crazy, like, asking people to the prom. It's called a thing. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I have no clue.
But it's a whole thing. I remember when our oldest.
It's called possible rejection.
Wow. All right. Healing. You know, you just triggered some people.
I did.
You did.
You were going to say something about our oldest, though.
Yeah, he did the whole asking out to the prom thing with, like, the big
Yeah.
sign on the track field and stuff like that. We're embarrassing our oldest right now.
But, like,
Sorry,
that ain't even his personality. Like, what's just crazy is that I would have never expected him to do something like that. So when he showed us the pictures, I was like, oh, okay.
So tell me about asking a girl to a prom.
Yeah, man. So it was like.
Keep it PG.
It was PG. So, yeah, there was this girl that was in my accounting class that.
Wait, pause.
What?
You took an accounting class?
I did take an accounting class. It was a part of the program that I was in.
Got it.
I actually thought I was going to be an accountant for a period of time.
Wow.
Until I talked to an accountant. Wait, why are you shaking your
Never.
head? Well, I have a reason, but it seems like your reason is different than mine.
I'll just let you finish telling the story.
So I was in accounting class. And there was this girl that used to she sat next to me, and you know she was a good looking young lady, and it was my junior year, and she kind of had started hinting toward like you know what, are you going to prom?
That's how she talked?
It was. It's probably a bad. Never mind. But are you going to prom and who are you going with? And it would be so wonderful to go to prom. I've never been. And so, I started like picking up the hints. And so I was like, okay, it could be me though. I could be reading into this a little bit too much. And she actually just is genuinely interested in if I'm going to prom.
Got it.
And so, I took a day and prayed in the spirit. And she was walking down the hall. And I gave her some flowers with a card and was like, would you go to prom with me? And she was just like.
She said, no. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely not. She was like, oh, my God, yes. And she told her friend, showed the flowers, and it was a big thing. So it was terrifying because, it's just that possibility of rejection.
Could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You?
Something that was exciting and terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. You just caught me off guard with that one.
Yeah,
because the question was for you.
It was.
It wasn't for me. I wasn't prepared
to
answer
the
a question. Yeah. So we just gonna move on to what like we was talking about.
Was you terrified when you had your first kid?
Was I terrified? I mean, I guess unknown. Feeling of the unknown and stuff like that.
Yeah.
First child. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know the amount of pain you're going to experience and stuff like that. It was terrifying, having my mom be in the room with me because she kept lying to me about like the contractions on the little monitor thing.
Yeah.
And I kept asking her if like the little monitor thing tells you like how bad the contraction is as it goes up. And I kept asking her, is it going to go down? Is it going down? And she said, yeah. But after I had our first son, she said, I was lying to you the whole time. So that helped it be a little less terrifying that she was lying to me.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't give people a license to lie.
No, I don't think so.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not advocating lying.
That definitely would fall into the category of something.
But you can't ask for repent. You can't repent afterwards.
You can. I don't know if she did though. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. Funny story about your mom.
Oh gosh.
Is that she takes inappropriate pictures during pregnancy.
Oh no.
It's terrible. And I have to hide all these pictures. And I'm like, I don't even understand why.
You have a drawer full of inappropriate pictures.
So like, if we ever passed away and somebody was like coming into the house, they'd be like, "What are these?" So this has nothing to do with the podcast. So our episode today is we're gonna be talking about some of our values as a church. And so every church that we know of has a culture, has some behaviors that they want to see kind of implemented. And any culture is always going to be by design or default. So it's really what you either allow or what you actually do intentionally. And so just like any other church, we have, some values. Now, when it comes to like culture, have you ever been a part of something that like culture like really mattered? Like it was like quintessential.
Quintessential. You've been in your thesaurus.
Come on.
Is that the word for the day?
It is.
Okay. Quintessential.
Don't ask me to spell it.
Ooh, worst speller in the world. It's okay though.
I am on level 218 on WordSpace.
Wow.
Killing the game.
But I'm sure they don't have words like quintessential.
If they did,
because you wouldn't be on level
I would be
200
stuck
and something.
On whatever level that was.
Right.
Yes.
So have I ever been in an atmosphere, been on a team where values mattered?
Yeah.
I would probably say when I was in culinary school. Mm-hmm. So I went to culinary school.
She's a chef.
I am a chef. I'm a chef, certified. So one part of the program was for one semester you worked in the front of the house where you were like servers and stuff like that, and then the other part of the program you worked in the back of the house where you were a line cook. So as a line cook, you were responsible for various stations, and in these various stations you had to depend on your team to call out certain things, to give you information. Like if somebody wanted their steak, well done or medium, they had to call it out and let you know that that's what they wanted.
Come on, call it out and preach.
Oh, goodness. So before I was rudely interrupted.
Sorry.
So there would be times where, like, let's say, somebody wanted their steak well done, but nobody called it out. Typically you would cook a steak to like medium. And so then you send it out and it'd have to come back because it wasn't cooked the way that it was supposed to be cooked. And the communication between the team and between everybody that was on the team and on the line really mattered. Yeah. Because if somebody got like irritated or was upset or felt like offended because maybe their dish didn't come out right and the chef sent it back and was like, make it over, wipe your plate off, different things like that, it would fall apart. Like especially if you had you had different personalities, of course, on the team. So
Absolutely.
If people like got offended because you didn't say it the right way or you didn't say please or thank you, people get all in their feels or get upset, and that would make the entire line fall apart. So it was so necessary to have certain values like having honor, having respect, being careful about your word usage and things like that were necessary to make the line flow well. So that made a big difference when we implemented the right values, the right culture on the team, because eventually if we didn't, it started to affect the front of the house. So the meals would go out wrong because we weren't communicating right, and people in the front of the house, the customers and stuff like that, would be upset because they're like, well, what's going on? What's taking so long? And also you could actually hear if the door like swang open and stuff like that. So they wanted to hear a team working in unison, working together in unity to complete the meals. And if they weren't communicating correctly, they could hear all of like the commotion and stuff like that back there. So, I mean, culture mattered when I was in that part of the program.
Like you just preached the whole message right now.
Oh gosh.
Like the behind the scenes started to affect the front.
Right.
Like, come on. Like I just got a whole series off of what you just said right now.
Not a series.
Backhouse. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna put that in my notes.
Put that in your notes. Put that in your notes.
Right.
So at Thrive City Church, we're going to have what's called vibes and values.
Vibes and values.
Because every value creates a vibe.
Come on, say that again.
Every value creates a vibe. Now, before y'all go all like, oh my God, is this demonic? Because they said vibes.
Not demonic.
Before we go there, because some people will be like, that's too new agey. Let's just give the definition so people can calm down a little bit. A vibe is simply the atmosphere of a place that is felt by others.
Yeah.
That's simply what it is. And so I want the vibe to be good because vibes matter.
Right.
I mean, like when I'm trying to woo you and it's like date night.
Did he say woo?
Woo.
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 Okay.
I got to create a vibe. I have to create an atmosphere that is conducive with what it is I'm trying to see.
That's the word for tomorrow, conducive.
Conducive with what I'm trying to see. And so sometimes people can create vibes that don't actually align with their actual values. And here's one thing that I think.
Okay.
I think that sometimes the vibe that we get from the culture that Jesus set is not actually the vibe that people experience in church.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, like, I can get down with God. I can get down with Jesus. It's just his children that I don't really like. But I always think it's crazy that Jesus is like the epitome of purity, the epitome of righteousness, of holiness. But people who didn't believe like Jesus liked Jesus.
Right.
Hey, that's crazy. It's like you got tax collectors, you got like people who doing stuff they ain't supposed to do. You know, you got the woman who was caught in adultery. Like all of them are drawn to holiness. And I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves the question, what kind of vibe are we giving to people who don't believe like us? Because we can be so legalistic sometimes. We can be so kind of caught up in self-righteousness that we create an atmosphere and an environment that people actually can't experience Jesus in.
Yeah, it's like we have to be intentional about creating the right atmosphere of our life, not just where we're showing up, but even how we're showing up in life in general, not just in our homes or our workplaces, but just wherever we go, we should bring the right kind of atmosphere that draws people. Yeah. Because that's what Jesus did. He drew people to him, so we should be reflecting what he did too.
That's good. That's good. So we have 9 vibes and values. So, honey, do you want to read what the 9 vibes and values are?
All right. So our first one is integrity is our identity. 360 honor is our posture. Excellence is our choice. Trust is our target. Generosity is our joy. Accountability is our compass. Relationships are our heartbeat. And legacy is our responsibility.
And we got one more.
One more.
That was 8.
Okay.
The last one is audacious faith is our attitude.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
We'll talk about that value because over the next couple months, what we're going to do is we're going to give you updates about what's going on with the church plant. But we also want to spend some time kind of just breaking down each one of these values because if you're going to be a part of Thrive City Church, if you're going to be investing in the Thrive City Church, we want you to know what we're about. Yeah. And so today we're going to spend a little bit of time. And I'm going to read the definition of what we came up with. Audacious faith is our attitude. It says that we have the audacity to believe not only the possible, but the impossible. We refuse to insult God with small thinking. We dwell in the realm of the unseen and refuse to live as if the purpose of life is to arrive safely at death. What?
I feel like the Rocky music should have been playing behind you while you was reading that.
I felt that. And I think many times, man, it's like we say like our whole title is we're believers. Yeah. But a lot of times we don't actually operate with a sense of belief. I would ask the question, when's the last time you failed at something? Mm-hmm. Because the last time you failed at something is probably the last time that you walked out in faith.
That's good.
And some of us live it's like, what's it called? The balance beam that gymnasts are on. It's like, how they get on it and they start doing flips and stuff like that. And it's like, it's amazing. But could you imagine somebody getting on a balance beam and then laying on it and just holding it and then scooting across? And it's like, it takes no faith to get from one side to the other if you are depending completely and totally on your own ability.
Yeah, so it's like we want to be a group of people who are like balance beam walkers or tightrope walkers.
Come on.
That
water walkers.
That's the audacious faith kind of people we want to be.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we want, it's like, I asked God this question because we planted a church before and the church didn't go the way that we were expecting. And so when we started this process, I asked God, I was like, Lord, how should I come into this? Should I come into this like full-fledged, pull all my faith into it, like just no holds bar? Or should I come in calculated? I was like, should I come in with a sober expectation because I've seen how this could play out? And I felt like the Lord said, you can come in how you want to, but the result of what you get is going to be based on how you approach it. He said, would you rather give your all and see me do something amazing, or you not give your all and not put everything into it and see average results?
It's like you want God to say, he had the audacity to have faith in that.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to live like that. We're trying to live like with this audacious faith of believing and trusting that God is getting ready to blow our minds and that people are going to be reached and things are going to be changed. So I just think when we talk about audacious faith, it's a part of our culture. Risk taking is a part of our culture. So plan the church.
Plan a church.
2024.
Plan a church.
Fall. It's coming around the corner.
It is.
And we've heard it before. We've said it in the other podcasts. Planting a church is not just hard. It's next to impossible, especially in 2024.
Yeah, it's not for the faint at heart.
It's not.
At all.
So with going into this journey takes faith. It takes a lot of faith. And it takes faith to the extent of, and we're gonna get real vulnerable in this moment, is that when the Lord told us to leave our last church, leave off of staff, we were comfortable. Yeah. I mean, comfortable from a ministry perspective, like we weren't really challenged at that point anymore because we had kind of been doing ministry for a while. So it was kind of just going through the motions, and you knew things were coming up. You planned for them, leading our team, stuff like that. So it was settled. Like I was settled in a place, and I know that when we had conversations, it was kind of like, yeah, I can do this on autopilot.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I started to wonder. It's like I started to ask myself the question, like, am I dealing with burnout or am I comfortable? Yeah. I think they can mirror each other in a way, because like when you're comfortable, you sit back, you relax, you're like, you're chill. With burnout, it's like you kind of also like pushing back and you're like, losing interest and things like that. And they kind of resembled each other. So I had to figure that out, like what's really going on. Yeah.
Even from a financial standpoint, like we were in the best position that we've been in all the years that we've been married. And so for God to say, leave the comfortable place, and now go and do something that is unknown. Yeah. That's not a guarantee. It was like, yeah. And then once we got out here, it was like, but Lord, how we gonna make some money? We just bought a house.
Yep. Just bought a house.
And so we are literally living by faith right now. Absolutely. Trusting that God is going to provide each step of the way. So we don't have a 9-to-5. We prayed. We asked the Lord, like, Lord, can we go get a job? And the Lord was like, you can, but that's not what I'm telling you to do. I love how God gives me options. I don't know about you, but I don't like God's options. Just tell me, get a job, don't get a job. He'd be like, you can get a job, but you may not see me show up the way that I want to show up. Huh?
Yeah, and then the faith in that situation, like I love the acronym that I use for faith. It's faith, FAITH, forsaking all, I trust him. Yeah. And so it's like you have to even forsake your logic in the situation where it's like, well, it makes sense to go get a job, like because finances need to come in. Yeah. But for God, he's like, my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And yes, it may make sense to go get a job and because you need finances, but we never know. He may be like, in the Bible, how he was like, go get them gold coins out the fish's mouth.
Come on, I'm looking for my fish.
Look, I'm looking for my gold coins.
Where Nemo? I need, where you at? Just keep swimming. Like, I'm swimming, Lord. Right. Where the fish?
That's great. That's great.
So I think, so we're in this place where we don't have necessarily a regular income right now, but we're trusting and believing by faith that God is going to provide. Yeah. And so far, he's provided. Amen. Now, somebody could look at that and be like, man, that's crazy. And Mike Todd would say, it's crazy until it happens. But It's crazy, right? But the reason why we can depend on God and trust God is not just because of our faith, but it's also because of our history. Yeah. We've seen God do some amazing things that help our faith be in a position where we're like, if he did it before, he's faithful to do it again.
Right. We can put our faith in the faithful one, the one who's been faithful to 1,000 generations. Right. Yeah. And so because of that, it doesn't mean it's absent of like, fear and trying to figure it out and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're like, God, we've seen you show up in so many ways before. you're going to do it again.
Yeah. And one of the things that we said we were going to talk about was the reality of how we got to Arizona. So I'm going to try to like do this as fast as possible, but to give as much detail as possible.
Got it.
So when the Lord called us and was like, this isn't headquarters when we were living in California. And it was like, we're going to move. So we had came up with this list, and I think we had like 7 places on it, 8 places. It was like Colorado,
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Detroit. We knew that wasn't God, but it was still on the list. We had San Diego.
We did.
We had some places. So we were praying through some places. And then I had this very interesting experience. So let me tell y'all. So I'm sitting in church. We were going to this church at the time. And in the middle of praise and worship, everything goes black. And I see like this is open vision. I didn't know that's what it was called at the time. But everything goes black, and there's this river. And then there's like vegetation by the river. Like it's a desert though. So like desert, river, vegetation at the around the water, and it goes away. And I was like, okay, praise God. So then the next day, you were giving me this book by Lisa Turkhurst, and I was on chapter 3. I got to the end of the chapter, and the poem was called "Streams in the Middle of the Desert." And I said, okay, that's 2 times. Logged it. Maybe 3-4 days later, a pastor that I had a relationship with randomly calls me and says, hey, I just felt like the Lord told me to call you and tell you what I've been preaching at my church. I've been preaching Isaiah 43. He'll make streams in the middle of a desert. And I'm like, okay, that's 3. So then I logically start thinking, okay, so we got eight places on this list.
And one of the places I believed it was Phoenix.
Now, I will tell you, she usually is more accurate with her words more quickly. She has said she thought it was Phoenix. I went to high school in Phoenix, here in Phoenix, and I was like, I don't want to go back to Phoenix. It's hot. I mean, and it ain't regular hot. It's like between your legs hot. Like, you know how when it is you get real hot and it's like the places where the heat comes from, you start sweating in places. No. It's like armpit hot. Like, it's hot here. It's stupid hot here. It's hot. Different hot here.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to come back here.
Needless to say, it's hot.
It's hot. And so the only place on the list that was a desert was Phoenix. And so I was like, okay, I investigate stuff though. So we came out here. We
did.
And because I had some friends that still lived here. And when we came out, I said, Lord, if you want us to move here, I need you to give us favor everywhere we go. We ended up getting a discount on the hotel room. We was going to places. They was giving us free food, free cakes. And I was like, okay, this obviously has to be God. Now, I'll let you tell your experience when we got here, because I don't want to misrepresent you.
Right. So like you had said at the beginning, we were talking about it being terrifying and exciting.
Yeah.
So I think I had the terrifying part. 'Cause I remember we were headed to, I don't know if we were headed to the hotel or something like that. It was the hotel, I believe. So we were coming around on the 10 and coming around on the 51, and there's this loop. And on the loop, when you come around the loop, you can see like as far as the eye can see, like the entire city. And as I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, I had like a borderline panic attack because I mean, I come from Fresno, California. So it's a little big city, right? But Phoenix is huge. It's because it's flatland, you know, everything is super spread out and you could see everything. And I was like, oh, nah, this is too much. So definitely felt that feeling of being completely terrified. Like we're about to uproot where we've been, even being in the Bay Area. We lived in a small city at that point. So coming to Phoenix was just like, this is a lot. Yeah. And it was definitely terrifying. But I will say, like, hindsight, looking back, experiencing the favor that we had, God was faithful in that. Yeah. Like, he gave us favor in so many different ways. And I mean, granted, obviously it was not too terrifying of an experience because now we're here today.
We're here. Been
10
here
years
for
later.
10 years. So real quick, because I don't want this podcast to go too long. What God did to get us here is one of the, in my estimation, is one of the greatest faith stories I think I've ever heard. Yeah. I was brushing my teeth one morning. The Lord was like, look at the pill bottle that was on the counter. And it said July 14th. And he was like, that's when you're supposed to leave. July 14th, we had $350 in our pocket. We had got the U-Haul, packed up the house. and we headed in this direction.
No job.
No place to stay. No car. We literally were living Abraham and Sarah. Go to the place that I will show you.
Right, on a prayer.
And so the day we're packing up the U-Haul, I get an email from Bank of America saying, you got a job that I didn't interview for. Crazy. We get on the road, drop our kids off because we don't know what we going into. So we dropped the kids off with your mom.
Yeah.
And was like, y'all stay there for a little bit. We got on the drive here. My dad calls me. And when he calls me, he says, hey, I heard you're moving to Arizona. And I was like, yeah. He was like, did you know your aunt stays there? And I was like, I didn't know that. He gets off the phone, calls. This is on the way here.
Right. We're on the road.
We're like a couple hours away.
Yeah.
And he says, your aunt said you could stay with her as long as you need, and she got an extra car that you could use. I can't make this stuff up, guys. We get here, we're praying one morning, and an envelope falls into my lap. So, when you're praying, and you try not to, we hold hands, and it happens. You trying to look like this,
right.
The one eye. And I was like, okay, that's an envelope. And so we're done praying. We open up the envelope, and there's enough money in that envelope to get a rent-a-car to go pick the kids up, first and last month's rent and the deposit, and enough money to get us to me starting the job.
Yep.
And that's how we got to Arizona. So when we say that we operate in audacious faith, we just believe that if God says it and you do it, he provides wherever he calls you to.
Absolutely.
And so we've gone on faith journeys, and this is just another faith journey for us to have a testimony that I believe is going to be greater than even the testimony that got us here.
Right.
To see God's faithfulness in this time.
Yeah, we're just waiting on somebody to send us the envelope.
With the 100,000 this time.
Right, in it.
No, it's the 600,000. See, sometimes you do the small thinking.
You have the audacity.
Yeah, you got to have the audacity to believe.
The big thing,
so if that's you and you are holding on
to the envelope
that we're waiting on, release it, because God got something for you. Because God, you can't beat God given. Ain't that what they used to say in the old church? You can't beat God given. And so we declare and decree right now that whoever has that, you releasing it right now. I would say my address, but just email us. gcolbert@thrivecitychurch.org. And we'll receive what it is that the Lord has placed on your heart.
And for those who actually want to give, and want to partner your faith with us in that way, you guys can go to the website, partner your faith with us in a way of giving. They may not actually send the envelope because, most people don't send stuff to the mail anymore. Mm-hmm. They can just text to give or Cash App, Zelle. Yeah.
And we receive it all. So did you have anything else from an audacious faith standpoint?
No, I just look forward to this faith journey that we're going to be on. And I look forward to those who are going to join us. I think, like I said earlier, is I want God to look at what we do and say, wow, you have the audacity to believe that I can do that. Well, let me show you what I'm really going to do, because he said he does exceeding abundantly above all that we could ever ask, think, or imagine. Yeah. And we're choosing not to insult God with little thinking. Yeah. So we're going to increase our faith and have the audacity to believe for the big thing. And we are going to be able to come back and give a testimony of the great thing that God did through Thrive City Church.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. We believe that God did not create you to survive, but he created you to thrive. We love you and see you next time.
Love you guys.